1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue Podcast sound check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Monday show, Royal Blue Podcast sound check. Hello and welcome to the Royal Blue Podcast. It's the Monday show. We are live and I am your host, Ian Croll. Joining me in the Royal Blue studio today to talk all things Everton, we have Chris Beesley and Gav Buckland. Chris, how are things? All good? How was the journey back from London?
Yeah, it was all right. No issues in that respect. All the drama really has come since we got back from the East End of London, and Everton's prospective owner Dan Friedkin and all his fun and games over at Roma with the dismissal of a third coach this calendar year, and obviously Juric getting the boot after less than 2 months in charge. I'm sure we'll come to that, but yeah, it's been far more eventful there than it was for us.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely come on to that. We will come on to the agenda, but obviously got plenty to write about today, Chris, as well, and we'll come on to some of your pieces specifically. Jordan Pickford, I know you spoke to him in the mix zone, but Gav, how are things? All good?
It's waking up after Saturday, I think.
Waking up, yeah.
Gradually getting back to reality. There was one point in the first half where I did feel as if I was falling asleep, you know.
It wasn't the best, was it?
No. I saw somebody say that it was the worst Premier League game this season, but they'd obviously not been to Southampton 7 days before, to be fair.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about it, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. We will come on to that. So today's agenda. It's obviously the West Ham reaction show, so we'll analyse, react and debate to all the talking points from Everton's 0-0 draw at the London Stadium. We're also going to talk about the Friedkin Group and the news that they have sacked their second manager of the season at Roma. So stick with us for that. There's all that, plenty more to discuss. As always, give us a thumbs up, drop us a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Your support, as always, is greatly appreciated. Chris, we will go straight into it. We'll start with you. You and Joe were down in London, the London Stadium, for the game. Let's look at the game, I guess, in isolation before we maybe look at the bigger picture, if that's what you want to call it. How did you assess the performance, and was it, I guess, a good result in the end?
Yeah, I mean, a lot, like as Gav said, there's been a lot said about it being supposedly a terrible game and all that. Obviously it was far from the best, but I actually thought, given what had happened to Everton the week before, I said in my post-match video, I thought it was a much better performance, and I think all things being equal, it was a decent response to all that. Yeah, it wasn't inspiring enough other than Jesper Lindstrom's header, which was tipped over the bar from close range. Weren't a lot of opportunities on target, but I think Everton get a lot more out of the game than West Ham did. They were very frustrated with it. Obviously, they spent a lot of money, very expensively assembled squad. Julian Lopetegui's come in and replaced David Moyes, and that's something I've written about myself. Obviously, there was a lot of unrest amongst their fan base in the way that they were supposedly playing under Moyes, and delivered their first trophy in over 40 years, and still a lot of people weren't necessarily satisfied with that. So Lopetegui's come in, there's a lot been expected of him, and to be fair, he hasn't hit the ground running. He's really feeling the heat, probably certainly internally more so than Sean Dyche is at Everton. And I thought that Everton were the more positive side and tried to sort of take the game to West Ham. I mean, ironically, obviously in the end, Jordan Pickford, who'd hardly had a save to make throughout most of the first half, ended up making like 5 decent saves, including that incredible one at the end to deny Danny Ings. So it's a weird one in that I thought Everton actually played pretty decently in what was obviously a poor game, but obviously Pickford ended up having to make that great save at the end to get a share of the spoils. Hopefully it'll be a decent point in the long run, and something you can look back on. Obviously you're not going to look back on the highlights, weren't many of them, but It leaves them just that, as painful as it was, that defeat at St Mary's. That's just the one defeat they've had the last 7 matches. I mean, you can flip that around. Obviously, they've not won many, but yeah, all things being equal, I thought it was a lot better than some people have said, and I thought Everton were okay really, and they can take a lot more positives from that than necessarily West Ham can.
I mean, Gav, I'll come on to you then. I thought that compared to previous performances, it was definitely slightly better. It was better, but the bar has obviously been low this season.
Yeah.
Me concern, I guess, was that I felt we did play well, certainly in the first half, the start of the first half, start of the second half. I felt West Ham were just there for the taking. Whether we could have done more, whether Dyche could have done more, but as Chris alluded to there, for all the positives, or the few positives during the game, West Ham had the better chances for me, and that, again, it's a concern.
Well, they're home, aren't they? So their substitutions work better than ours, didn't they? In the last 20 minutes, and we ended up and we end up with like this quite a few games that we've in the last 10 minutes of hanging on, aren't we? Even in games that we've drawn, like on Saturday, and that was the concern. But I do your first points about West Ham. I wouldn't say we were there for the taking, but it was definitely an opportunity to win, wasn't it? And against a team under more pressure than Everton going into the game and at home, which doesn't help, I think, in those circumstances. I mean, I don't know what it was like for you at the ground, but it was a very flat atmosphere. That's what came across on the television. That was and that's a reflection of the uncertainty around the team and the fact that actually West Ham fans aren't happy. And I felt in those circumstances we should have done a little bit more. We started off well, as well as Everton can start off well. I think the first 6 attempts and goal were all from Everton, weren't they? Albeit they're all best half chances. I mean, over the course of the game, we had more possession than West Ham. Notwithstanding
51%, wasn't it?
The last 20 minutes, West Ham had the bulk of the game. Clean sheet. We'll talk about Branthwaite was integrated back into the team. There were some decent individual performances, and Dyche was sounded reasonably satisfied in his post-match, didn't he? That was a good point in the circumstances, following on from the sort of debacle, as it were, at Southampton. But, and it's a big but, West Ham were, I won't say there for the taking, but they were there to be shot at. And it goes back to these run of games, doesn't it? In the sequence of games that we've got up until the end of Brentford. It was a game that probably you were thinking it's a should-win game. And I think we missed the boat a little bit. And those points good now. We don't want to look back at this at Christmas and say, well, we probably should have done more there than just protect the points like we did, I think, in the second half. So only time will tell. If we beat Brentford, it's 4 points from 2 games, isn't it? If we don't beat Brentford, it doesn't look like a great point. So we'll see. I think there'll be more context to it after the Brentford match in a fortnight.
I mean, Gav said there, Dyche was kind of satisfied with the result. I mean, the fans, obviously, a lot of the fans, the majority of fans aren't satisfied. I think going into this particular game, I think we all probably would have taken a point. I don't want to speak for you guys, but I certainly would have thought, as Gav said there, if we beat Brentford, it's definitely a good 2 games in a row. But I think probably results didn't go our way, or some results didn't go our way, and Ipswich have closed the gap. Wolves obviously won as well. I mean, you would not have expected Ipswich to have beaten Tottenham there, so fantastic result for them, well done. But again, they've closed the gap, and we're looking nervously now over our shoulder again.
Yeah, as Gav says, it's like the context. I mean, we had this block of 5 games. I know when Anders Limpar was in here with me and you, wasn't he? He was looking at these games and he was sort of rubbing his hands, really. And I think we were a bit more world weary about it, thinking, well, maybe it's not going to be 15 points, Anders. But I said at the time that looking at isolation, it was all games were winnable, but so far it's only been Ipswich. So I suppose if they bookend that sequence with the win against Brentford, it won't be so bad. But if they don't, well, it's you're looking at those block of 5, they've only won 1 of them. Well, that ain't so good. What I would say on a positive, I don't think anybody had a poor game for Everton on Saturday. To be fair, they were all at a certain level. It might only been a 6 or a 7, but everybody was and doing their job in that respect. I mean, Calvert-Lewin and Beto only had the one shot on target, I believe, between them. But no, but it wasn't like I thought Mykolenko really struggled at Southampton, and not just the goal where he was. Apparently Jamie Carragher said he wasn't out of position, but he certainly wasn't in the left back berth at the time. But it was almost like Southampton were getting at him. I think I wrote this in my analysis afterwards that. Obviously, we come on to Jarrad Branthwaite's individual performance, but just having Branthwaite in the side, sort of, Mykolenko was a lot more comfortable there. He seemed to benefit from that, and the same with James Tarkowski. I mentioned what you said, Gav, the fact that we've had all these "I'm the hardest man on the pitch" moments.
Yeah.
There wasn't any of that on Saturday. No. He didn't. Whether he felt the need to do that with Branthwaite on the side. So there was a certain level of consistency from the team. Nobody sort of let Everton down, and it wasn't spectacular by any means. Everybody was at least doing their job competently.
I mean, let's look at the bigger picture, I guess, then, Gav. From the opening 11 games, I mean, it's all relevant, isn't it? But Everton have basically faced 20th, 19th, 17th, 15th, 12th, 11th, and now 14th. And that has resulted in less than a point per game. Yeah. A big thing has been made about this period and how we need to get as many points as possible because we know what's around the corner.
Yeah.
I'm not looking to be negative, but it just does seem that this opening period of the season that we've let ourselves down a little bit.
Yeah, just before we go on, did you see a stat about James Tarkowski in the Times this morning?
No, what was that?
It's a record for the most consecutive starts from a start from his debut with any Premier League club.
Okay.
Ever since it started, he's on 87 starts from his first game.
And that might have been the one where he maybe would have got dropped. Obviously, it was between him and Keane, and he got the
which shows that he's picked him most in the top flight since Kevin Richardson at Aston Villa, former Everton player.
His little stat there.
Yeah. I forgot what the question was now. No, yeah. But
we just let ourselves down, I think.
Yeah, no.
I feel like we're in an unnecessary position right now when we could have been a little bit higher. And I think fans would maybe have been a little bit more accepting of that.
If you look at games individually in that 11 games, probably say there's a couple of games there that we should have got more of. Also, definitely, did I say Bournemouth?
Well, of course,
one. Probably.
Points,
I think Leicester away, we probably threw away 2 points, and possibly Saturday we should have got more out of the game, and Southampton we should have got at least a point. So if you're looking at it, in terms of the way the games went in terms of the 90 minutes, but in terms of performances over those 11 matches, in terms of being on the front foot, forcing the issue, being positive, do we think that we deserve more than 10 points compared to where they've seen other teams around us, how they've played during the season? You'd probably say no. That actually we are where we are because actually our performances reflected in the points tally. We scraped a couple of points maybe that we shouldn't have got. Certainly Fulham at home was one of them. But I think after that's enough games, isn't it, to give you 11 games? It's a big enough sample size to reflect where you are as a team. And we spoke about the wider issues last week, didn't we? Don't need to go into them about why we've got the team and the squad that we've got. And I think we've got what we deserved, really. There many reasons why that's the case, but I wouldn't say we should have done better. Not on the performances, we should have done better. I think. No. I think
been poor.
That's it, and that is the bit of the concern, isn't it, going into Christmas? We saw what's happened at the weekend. I think the bottom four teams below have all won since we last won. And so what looked like a couple of weeks ago was a bit of a gap to the bottom three, bottom four. Over the last fortnight, that's closed a little bit. So we spoke about last week, dare I say, relegation fight. And I'm not so sure about that, but it can change quite quickly. And it changed a little bit at the weekend where all of a sudden that gap's going. And we've got a harder set of fixtures than those four clubs over the next month and a half or so. So, I think we reflect our performances and team selection and the availability of players during that time. I wouldn't say we've been particularly unlucky with that. And we need to improve dramatically, I think, to be honest with you.
Okay, just a reminder, if you're watching live, get your comments in, get your questions in, and I'll read them out as we go. I'll come on to a few of those in a minute, but Chris, before we do, you spoke to Jordan Pickford after the game. He was certainly my man of the match. I don't know about whether he was your man of the match.
Yeah, he was in terms of the ratings.
Yeah, he kept Everton in the game. He certainly won them a point. Yeah, just do you want to? Well, obviously your piece is on the Liverpool Echo website for the start. So if you want to, if anyone wants to read that, then go for it. But I think he took a lot of criticism, certainly this season, for his form, and maybe rightly so. But he certainly bounced back against West Ham there.
Yeah, what I liked about it is it's like all top keepers. He wasn't called into action for a long time, but then he pulled out the saves, because I think there's been argument in the past, isn't it, almost that when he was a bit younger, Pickford had to be kept busy to
absolutely.
To produce his best form, but that wasn't the case. He had basically all he had is like one catch to make in about 43rd minute, and he made those 2 good saves just before half time, and then that one right at the end to Ings. I asked him, how much time did you have to actually see that, because it was very little, didn't it? And he says you got to live in the moment, and that's what he did. And it's a sign of a great goalkeeper, somebody who can be inactive for long periods, and then he's still at the top of his game to make those saves. I was speaking to Michael Ball earlier doing his column, and he said it's up there with like a sort of a Neville Southall-esque save. So as an Everton goalkeeper, you can't give higher praise than that. And I thought it was really spot on from Jordan, and I got a good talk about it afterwards, so check that one out.
Did you fear the worst when Ings was coming on
there was a bit of that, because I've seen, not just being former Liverpool player, he's hurt Everton a few times over the years, and he was actually played Dyche at Burnley. He didn't sign him, I think he came before Dyche, but he was obviously one so that had all the ingredients, unfortunately, but denied that one as well for Danny Ings, so all made up with that, because there was a couple of chances, to be fair. Ings had one before that, didn't he, as well? So he's always, and ironically, of course, a player who Frank Lampard, I believe, wanted to get to Everton as well. So there were plenty of ingredients there, but it could have gone wrong. Unfortunately, didn't.
I mean, Dyche made a point of talking about Pickford, didn't he, after the game, and you said what you just said there, that the quality of a top goalkeeper's concentration, especially when you're not being busy for the previous 90 minutes, and to react like that in the last, I think it was injury time, wasn't it?
It was,
it's testimony to how Jordan's developed that side of his game over the last 6 or 7 years, where I think it used to be a weakness with him, but now I think he's at it for the 90 minutes when he's on his game, and that was reflected on Saturday. And if you're Dyche, you're thankful for that, aren't you? Because imagine going into Brentford having got beat 1-0.
Oh yeah.
In the last minute with Danny Ings' goal at West Ham. I think that would have been portentous, that, wouldn't it, really? I think that's probably why, one of these why I thanked him afterwards. You got me out of a hole there a little bit by that save. And it's probably well deserved. He was, for those saves, you put him as our man of the match, Chris.
Yeah, definitely. And I've just actually, in passing, because I know I wrote this in my piece this morning, I know a lot has been made about Gary Barlow's son and his size this week. Right. Jordan Pickford is always getting stickily for supposedly being a small goalkeeper, right? Yeah. Now, Gary Barlow's giant son is apparently only actually 6'2". It's effing his relative. Apparently, Barlow's 5'7", which puts him about the same as Idrissa Gueye. And Pickford is officially 6'1", which is the same height as me. Now, maybe I'm shrinking in my old age or something, but I was looking him in the eye on Saturday evening, and he looks bigger than 6'1" to me. So I'm just putting it out there. Maybe Jordan Pickford is actually as big as Gary Barlow's big son.
Strange little segue there. Yeah.
Not quite as big as Gavin Buckland, but as big as Gary Barlow's big son.
You do get smaller in height as you get older. I can confirm that.
I think it is an interesting point if you want to. Yeah. Because remember what I said to you when we met Moyes.
He was bigger than you thought as well?
He was a lot bigger than I thought.
He's supposed to be 6'1" as well. Well, there you go.
He was a lot bigger than I
thought. When I don't say this, when I met Wenger in the and I always thought he's taller than me, but he never looks like that on the tally.
Wow.
He was like a good inch and a half taller than me, which he didn't look like that. But no, being serious though, I mean, Jordan's had stick in the past, but sometimes you get games like on Saturday where thou shalt not pass is his mantra, isn't it? And you in that port in the last 20 minutes of the game where disappointingly for us, I think we sat back when we didn't really need to. He blocked 3 or 4, didn't he? Really, that was the one that was top draw. I think the others were not regulation, but you'd expect him to save. But I think, fair enough. He came to our rescue yet again.
Yeah, Roy Keane said just doing his job, wasn't he?
Yeah, I get that, but it's the time when you're doing your job, isn't it? And like when you're protecting a point against a team that's also struggling away from home, and you're doing a job like that in the last minute, it was the timing of it. That was the main thing, wasn't it?
I think he knew that himself without actually going saying.
They're
saying it to me. Oh, that was a great save.
Yeah.
He knew it was that, and maybe like we were saying about these tall football people. Maybe it's the way you carry yourself. I don't know.
You've said that in the past, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gav, do you think Dyche got the team right? Do you think he got the balance right? The only reason I'm asking that now is because Danny Church has said should have started Beto or played 4-4-2 just to give West Ham something different to think about.
Going back to starting from the last bit, 4-4-2, I wouldn't play 4-4-2 for the simple reason that you lose a man in the midfield. If you're playing 2 strikers, you lose that with the core 8 plays on Saturday. So you're playing, 2 against their 3 in midfield. I remember Ancelotti playing 4-4-2 at Chelsea, I think in March 2020, well, just before COVID, and we got beat 4-0. And their middle 3 just ran rings around R2. And then I think that's why nobody plays 4-4-2 in modern football, or very very few people do. So I get the calls for Beto, but I think Calvert-Lewin, for all his limitations, is a far more rounded striker than Beto, isn't he? Far more experience in playing that system for Everton, and he knows the players more. And so you get, for all his weaknesses, and particularly his lack of goals, you still get why Calvert-Lewin gets a shirt ahead of Beto. Was a different striker, maybe not so suited to playing, as a striker in Dyche's system as he. Because if you play the ball up to Beto, 9 times out of 10 it's coming straight back to you. He either fall over, or his first touch is let him down, or he's not in the right place. So. And that happened. That happened on Saturday, didn't it? To a degree when he came on. So I played Calvert-Lewin. Definitely gets a shares ahead of Beto. Though I don't think that's particularly great for us at the moment.
If I can just interject, I just thought when he made the subs, I thought we looked worse. To be honest, I thought when Beto came on, I'm not saying it's all down to him, but I felt like West Ham then took the emphasis.
Well, some of their subs made the difference as well, didn't they? They pushed up the pitch a lot further than what they had done, and. The starting lineup, it's an interesting one, isn't it, really? The centre-half position on Saturday. The stories that Dyche has been playing three centre-halves in training and then changed his mind. Obviously, with Branthwaite coming back, it lifts everybody, doesn't it? It removes some of the adverse comments Dyche has had, hasn't he, about not playing Branthwaite. So that was good. Felt sorry for Keane, who I believe was fit, Chris, I think that's right. Yeah. But understandable, and you get why I said before that Tarkowski, because he plays on the right hand side of the defence, it's easy just to bring Branthwaite ahead of Keane rather than drop Tarkowski, move say Keane to the right, and then having to put Branthwaite in on the left. And Mikalenko looked far better, I think. For it, certainly in the first half, he got 20 yards further up the pitch, didn't he? But Branthwaite still looked a bit rusty. Giving credence to the stories that Dyche has said about him not being fully fit. He certainly didn't look that on in the second half, at least on Saturday. But I think that the starting lineup was about right, given we got to carry in a few injuries, and we looked reasonably solid, didn't we? We had more possession than them, which was a small positive. But there's an interesting thing with Branthwaite. I was talking about this on Friday about why he's not being selected. And maybe I've been reading too many books on conspiracy theories. But do you think the thing with Branthwaite is Dyche is being told, or Dyche wants it, so whatever happens, Dyche has got Branthwaite's got to be fit in January, just in case anybody comes in for him. That
I hope not.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is we want them fit in January.
You've left us speechless here, Gav.
Yeah, well, they should.
Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Because there is talk.
Well, even if the club, it would be bad. Not just obviously, it'd be really bad the fact that they were once having to cash in on them, but they were obviously basing their selection policy at this time on that.
I'm not saying that's the case. It's just something, isn't it? That actually, just make sure he's fit in January.
He could get injured any time, though.
Well, he can't. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? But if he's playing him when he's half fit, at Palace, he came on and he started them and
he
played.
Started Palace, didn't he?
Is there a theory that just make sure he's fit in January?
We certainly
don't risk him.
Been wrapping him up in cotton wool compared to some of the others. Like we said last week, with McNeil didn't train most of the week, then played.
Yeah.
Whereas Branthwaite is waiting on him. But on a more positive
no,
note
I'm just trying to think about. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just running things through my head about why he's left him so long when there's obviously been an opportunity to play him. Again, just extending that conspiracy theory, is there could be actually get money in January and then reinvest in the squad for the rest of the season. Perhaps it's just something put it out there.
I'd certainly hope. Sorry, go on.
No, it's just a theory.
I'd certainly hope he hasn't been given that message. I mean, you play your best players, and then if at some point, which we know he's going to go, whether it's January in the summer or a year or two, hopefully his value goes up by playing him. That's the only way that happens.
You can play him. What I'm saying is maybe you've been a little bit more cautious with him in that eventual, to avoid that eventuality of him being injured, and also just being injured for the rest of the season doesn't does value any. Damages value, sorry. So we'll see, just a little. I'd had a couple of fears, obviously, on Friday night when it came out with that, but I just think it's an interesting angle.
What's in that tea there?
Maybe it's just maybe it's a combination of Dyche feeling that he was vindicated over Calvert-Lewin and the way he managed him, and obviously getting 39 games out of him last season, and just a bit of stubbornness as well. In that if everyone's clamouring for Branthwaite to return,
we spoke about that last week, didn't we?
And the possession of the shirt as well, because Michael Keane, to be fair, done very well. But I just think on a more positive note with Branthwaite, just want to get this in that he was shaking off the rust, and there was one moment early in the second half when Jarrad Bowen just got the better of him, and to be fair, Tarkowski managed to get a deflection wide for the corner. But you could just see from the start, as well as Keane's done, and he's produced some really sort of decent displays, and obviously Ipswich in particular, while Branthwaite's not been in the side, just the way how assured he is in possession. He carried that ball out of defence and into midfield with ease, and obviously his reading of the game, which is getting better all the time, his recovery pace, just a whole different sort of feel about it. I would like to think, that was one of my talking point piece today. People want to look about that I think that with him in the side, the Everton just look a totally different proposition. So hopefully he's there to stay now.
Actually, did you think that was one of the reasons why Tarkowski looked a bit more solid on Saturday?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if we can big ourselves up, what Chris said there, what we said on Friday, Branthwaite did everything and contributed everything we said he would do to the team, enabling us to play 25 yards to further forward. And like you said, there was, I think, a number of times in the first half, where he brought the ball out across the halfway line and managed to actually pass the ball into a dangerous area. And Michalenko looked a bit more solid as well. I think that's all.
Michalenko got further up the pitch in the first half. That was noticeable straight away. 25 yards further up the left flank than what he has been. And I agree, we look far more solid. At the same time, you saw enough in Branthwaite's performance to see why Dyche has probably not played him previously, to be fair, because I think he did look a bit rusty in the second half.
That definitely comes down to match sharpness, I think. I think as a defensive unit, we looked a little bit better, and I think the partnership between Tarkowski and Branthwaite, obviously, it's flourished in the past, and hopefully that can do again. I do think Tarkowski was a little bit shaky. I think he gave the ball away at one point in the second half. I can't remember if you recall, but he literally passed it right across the face of the pitch, and West Ham.
Yeah, there was one. Yeah, there was one incident.
And I thought that's another instance there where Tarkowski, you think, what are you doing?
Yeah. Just talking about the 7-game run we're on at the moment. How many goals we conceded now? It's about 5, is it? 4 or 5? It's not a bad defensive performance, is it really? I know people give, quite rightly so, that attacking we've been poor in terms of our output and just generally lack of creativity. But I think defensively, I can't. I think those 7 games would be about 5 goals with it, something like that.
I'm trying to do it in my head now, Gav.
Yeah.
Leicester,
No, I think what
Palace,
I'm saying,
one each. 3.
We've lost that, haven't we? That quite rightly, Dyche have been getting loads of stick. His future being questioned. But the one thing, and he spoke about this a little bit on Saturday after the game, is the one thing you just want a clean sheet. I mean, all managers start off, even like Greece's managers start off, just keep a clean sheet is your priority. And I think over the last 7 games, we have been reasonably robust defensively, haven't we? We've not really been stretched. I know some of that's down to the opposition we've played, as you pointed towards in terms of their league positions, but individually might be in poor performances, but collectively as a unit, we've been reasonably
I don't disagree. I think obviously from the first 4 games where we were just conceding.
Yeah, it was 13 goals in 4 games or something.
I think we may have flip-flopped that slightly to maybe a little bit more solid defensively as a unit, but unable to score, which is obviously now the major concern.
And the games coming up, we're more likely to face a greater attacking threat army, and that's going to test us. I get that, but it was I don't know whether did you stay away to watch Match of the Day on Saturday?
I was still travelling back.
Absolutely not.
I'd seen it.
Micah Richards at the end was quite positive, just generally about Everton, saying 1 defeat in 7 games. You know how many clean sheets there is, and not conceded many goals. It's all good.
Yeah,
but actually, I'm not saying that's the case, but it's interesting, isn't it? If we obviously follow Everton all the time, and we watch them, and we all listen to the views of fans, and a lot of them are valid, as we discuss on the pod. And we get, and as a result of saying going up to last week as well, there's a lot of, understandably and rightly so, a lot of negativity and criticism of Dyche and the team. But people on the outside look at it slightly differently, don't they? They just look at your league position, your current run that you've had, and what you perform. Your results, and they will just say 1 defeat in 7 games, only conceded 4 or 5 goals in that time. They're doing okay. But actually, those following the clubs who see it differently as fans and see it in more detail, and have got a lot more knowledge, look at it in a different way, don't they? I just thought that was an interesting comparison.
How outsiders view your club.
How compared to how you do.
No, definitely,
And Richards was a quite positive way, which I thought was really strange. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's invalid. Sometimes you can be too close, can't you? And you don't see the bigger picture. And there's just an interesting little segment from Richards on Saturday on Match of the Day.
Okay, let's have a look at some questions then. So Gary Mead says, who is worse than us, Southampton and Ipswich? That's it. Do you think there's anyone right now who you would fit in the bottom 3?
Wolves, Palace. I mean, even I've seen like long term. Nottingham Forest has a brilliant start to the season, but that's not gonna last the whole way. I think that's what my talking point was about today. With Branthwaite back in the side, I don't think Everton are relegation fodder. I know, obviously, the points total from the games they've had and the opposition they've had, none of us are happy with that. But on the flip side of it, quite right, so people are talking about the tough games on the horizon. The Premier League's not that predictable. Everton maybe were never going to get as many points as we hoped from this run, and perhaps they'll surprise us a little bit in December. After all, Liverpool, Chelsea, they were 2 home wins, 2 clean sheets last season. So, I don't. This Everton team with Branthwaite in it is not relegation fodder for me. Okay, it's not a vintage Everton side by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that they're plenty worse than it. Everton, when Everton's strongest side are out there, and that I know Branthwaite makes a big difference to that.
Leicester into that.
Leicester.
I think what we're saying is there's probably about 7-8 clubs in the lower half of the Premier League who are there's a bit between them, but not a lot on any given day, and I think Everton are in that, but by no means the bit worse. There's that interesting stat, isn't it? And this has been reflected in our games, isn't it? Is 70% of the Premier League games this season there's been something on the game going into injury time in the
Okay.
second half. You know, like it's either been level or one team's been ahead by a goal. But you sort of get that there's a lot of games where the two teams are pretty much
Yeah,
the
evenly
same.
matched.
And I certainly think that, you know, after our first 4 games of the season, that's what the one thing I'll take from the season so far. And even when we go into this run in December, you can still see those games being tight the way we played this season, even against the bigger clubs. You know, dare I say, in terms of higher than the table than us. And obviously we've got like a should win game at Man City on Boxing Day now, haven't we? within all that. But no, but that shows how things can change, can't it? You know.
Yeah.
We'll see. Gavin Cunningham in the comments has said, why are you sticking up for this system and Dominic Calvert-Lewin? There is no system plus Dominic Calvert-Lewin is average at best.
Well, that's something. Gav getting accused of sticking up for DCL.
Well, that's something. I totally agree.
True, yeah.
The Calvert-Lewin, as we know, Calvert-Lewin's has got his limitations. I've spoken about them quite a bit on the podcast, but in here and now, in terms of the selection options available to us, he's still the best option.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. You
For the system that Dyche
you can
plays.
say both things, can't you? That actually he's limited. I've always think he's been overrated by Everton supporters. I think, but at the same time, for what we need to do at the moment, he's our best option. He's a better option than Beto, and that's it. It's either Beto or DCL. When Brozier or Broier comes in, it'd be interesting to see what happens. Disappointed really that Chimiti's injured, because I think he may have given us something slightly different.
Just competition?
Yeah, and competition. And you can do both. But the one thing I wouldn't have is DCL and Beto in the same team. We'd lose a lot in midfield then.
A lot of chat in the comments, Chris. A couple of people saying this, saying it's not a disgrace as such, but why is Ndai not being given a chance to play as the number 10?
Yeah, see,
We need Joe on, don't
Joe, we? Yeah, Joe will be banging the drum on this one. To be fair, that is something Michael Ball speaks about, so look out for that one later on. I guess that would have been the opportunity. We talk about mixing it up at West Ham United, and okay, as we've said, maybe 4-4-2 wasn't the answer. Even after dabbling with the 3 at the back, and he didn't go that way. That might have been a way he could have done it, hadn't it? Putting Ndai in the middle with Dwight McNeil out. This could have been an opportunity for it without giving too much away. It's something that Michael Ball talks about. He says, okay, Dyche doesn't make a lot of substitutions, but just keep the opposition guessing. Even if you're not going to do it for the full 90, you can mix things up as the game goes on. Just have a few minutes out there, switch the wingers over, do stuff like that. Because we know he is reticent to make changes when he doesn't need to, and he probably hasn't got the same sort of option, strength, and depth as some of the other Premier League sides. So. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't be. I'm not like you and Joe. I'm not going to fall down 100% down one way or the other on this. But yeah, I'd try and mix things up at times. And he certainly seems like a player who would offer a bit of potential. He can go either way down the middle.
I mean, I guess to counter that, I would not be opposed to Ndai playing as the number 10 at some point. But I think for all the faults, if you want to say it, of McNeil playing as the number 10, he has been rather effective as that number 10 in the early stages of the season. Top goal scorer, top assists. Obviously, it's not, results haven't been amazing. So I'm just trying to see both sides of the argument.
I definitely get the option, just switch it in game a lot more.
Yeah.
Which we just don't do.
No.
We start off
Too
4-2-3-1 and the 3 just stay in the same pattern throughout the game. That we might change it once the subs come on, but we don't swap wings after 30 minutes or something like that, do we? Or swap it round. And I think by Dyche's limited options, you should do that more often. And I get the number 10. For me, though, he's first and foremost what you see him. He's a dribbler, isn't he? And do you want your number 10 to be that type of player? What you want, I always think with number 10 is to think quickly, release the ball quickly, spot a pass quickly. McNeil actually has been on occasions been like that this season, and so I sometimes think that actually he's not that type of player. He holds on to the ball a bit too long, and sometimes if you do that number 10 position, it's the opportunity is gone. Having said that, he has played number 10. Did he play number 10 for Sheffield United, I think, or previously in his career?
I think he was even playing up top at times as well.
So I don't. It's worth a go, but I just don't see him as a natural number 10. And let's face it, within all that, how many clubs play with a number 10 these days? Not many. It's a position that's fine, isn't it? The old-fashioned number 10. And I'd like to see him given the opportunity, but I don't see within his game. But I could be proven wrong there.
I mean, a lot of people, suggesting that we should, for Brentford, go with Beto and Dyer as the number 10. Is that something? I mean, we're obviously going to come on to Brentford in the next week or two, Chris. But is that something that you could see happening, or?
No. It's the answer. I just don't see Beto getting, unless something happens to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Although it was interesting actually that Dyche name-checked Broja and Chimiti after the game, and talking about how he hopes to increase his attacking options there. But he's still got a lot to. I mean, obviously Chimiti came on well towards the end of last season, looked a lot of promising. But okay, most of them were substitute appearances. He hasn't scored in 20 matches in English football. Broja didn't score at all at the second half of last season on loan at Fulham. So for me, it's still Calvert-Lewin to be leading the line for the reasons that Gav's explained already. In terms of Ndiaye, maybe. Like I said, I'd probably go along with that idea. Maybe try and mix it up a bit during games rather than just staying static over the 90 minutes.
If you played Ndiaye 10, you'd assume who would you have as your other two players then in the?
As in the two
wide attackers.
Yeah.
In theory, you have Lindstrom and then McNeil, wouldn't you? But
would you play McNeil left-hand side, Lindstrom right? Then I presume would be the option you.
That's what started, I'd imagine. But again, this idea of
I mean, they are in all this. People, it's interesting because there's been a lot of conversation about Dyche needs to do something different, and you think about, well, he's not imaginative. The one time in the number 10 position where it worked really well was when he played Harrison there against Newcastle last season, and Harrison's got more than 2 feet, hasn't he? And he does think, I think, quite quicker when it's needed, and that worked really well. You can play the ball into him with his back to goal, and he'll lay the ball off, he'll twist and turn. Even though he's got very little pace, because you don't need pace in that position. That's what I was saying about Ndiaye. And it worked really well, and I don't think it's hardly been played since. And I find that strange.
Yeah. Well, he just to not counter it, but he just doesn't like to experiment too much, does he? But
yeah.
I agree
but
with
he experimented there, and it worked. And we had Young playing wide right, didn't we?
Yeah, he had a very good game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been probably our best home performance last season, all things considered. And we've not hardly done it since, if at all. And that's another option. It's just strange, isn't it? Occasion what managers are like.
Final thoughts then on West Ham before we come on to Freaking, the last segment of the pod. I mean, you said you're content with the point, Chris, I guess. Anything else to say on before we close the book on that one?
Yeah, just it was not a great game by any stretch of the imagination, but for me, Everton came out with that with many more positives than West Ham. Their fans, they were booing at the end. They were disgruntled at half time. They weren't happy. They're really not happy. A lot of them with Lopetegui. He doesn't seem to have be the right fit. I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, a lot of them thought Moyes wasn't the right fit because he wasn't playing the kind of champagne football expected at the academy of football. And then Lopetegui's been brought in with that brief, and just hasn't happened for him. So yeah, I think Everton can get a lot more out of that than West Ham.
Okay, Freaking then. Let's move on to them. I know you're going to be doing a couple of pieces on this today,
done one
Chris.
already, another one on the way, yeah.
Roma have sacked head coach Ivan Juric following Sunday's 3-2 home defeat to Bologna and are searching for their third manager of the season. Basically, he replaced Daniel De Rossi, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he's basically the eighth. He was only the manager for 8 months after Jose Mourinho left De Rossi. Yes. So I found this very unprecedented and a little bit strange that usually when you get a new owner, you've got no idea what they're like because they don't usually own a football club. But we're literally it's playing out, and we're seeing exactly what Freaking are like. Ruthless.
Yes.
I think that is, to ring true. Also, maybe a little bit of a concern that they're not picking the right manager, the right man. For me, I don't know what your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it was. On the one hand, I've heard a lot of people say a lot of good things about Dan Freakin as a person, as a businessman, safe pair of hands, not prone to hysteria. I'm going to come on to all this. Obviously, it's well known that he's a skilled aviator himself. He flew Jose Mourinho himself into Rome when he was hired. Same with Romelu Lukaku as well. Obviously, he comes from a family of aviators. His grandfather was one of the first budget airlines in the US, and I think his father was an accomplished pilot as well. So he comes a long line of that. And for billionaires, he's got some wholesome hobbies. He's big on his conservation. Interesting today on our Mr. Stay, one of the things he's big on is repatriating the bodies of American servicemen killed in the Pacific in the Second World War. So, you know, he seems a good egg in that respect, in compared to, you know, what some other billionaires and their extracurricular activities. But from a footballing point of view, at Roma, as we said, hired and fired Mourinho, who delivered their first European trophy since the 1960s. He then went on to Daniel De Rossi, so a totally sort of change of tack there in terms of his, because I think De Rossi was quite inexperienced as a coach, possibly just in Serie B, so he brought him in, handed him a 3-year contract over the summer, and then sacked him like less than a month into this season. And it's not like they'd lost all their games 5-0. I think they'd drawn most of them and then lost one. So he went. And in comes Juric, who was experienced coach in Serie A, spent 3 years at Torino, and he's gone now after less than 2 months. We've got an article already up today, reporting Italy saying he was sacked before he even got back to the dressing room. I mean, we thought it was Ancelotti was bad, because remember when after Beckford did his mazy run, his George Weah impression, that Ancelotti was sacked before he even got out of Goodison. Well, Juric had been sacked before he even got back to the Roma dressing room. Maybe it's a lesson to him to keep his phone on silent or to keep it off when he's working. But yeah, ruthless is one way of looking at it. But like you say, another way of looking at it is he appointing the right people? Because if he's on his third manager in one calendar year, I mean, Moshiri's gone through 8 in 8 years. He's never sacked 2 in the same season. So what do we take from that?
I mean, if I can maybe just carry on with it, Gav, tell me what you think about Freakin, but if we can relate it to Everton and Sean Dyche, if results, performances carry on the way they're going at the moment, and Freakin comes in as we're expecting in December, it's not going to be long before Sean Dyche has shown the door himself. Well, that's just from my personal point of view.
It's the final year of his contract, so slightly different, isn't it? Really, he's not just started his contract. But going back to Chris's point, because you need to talk about that, I think, before we talk about Everton. Is, you know, Italian football's different to British football, isn't it? You know, the way of getting that way is that they've always hired and fired managers, you know, far more regularly than what we have done in the Premier League, you know, until we got to Watford, I think, probably. So I think that you've got to remember here that the culture of Italian football is slightly different. Ancelotti got sacked at half-time, didn't he? Juventus in 2001 when they were going for Serie A, you know, so
you did well to make it to the end of the game.
Getting sacked in the main stand after the game is not the worst sacking Ancelotti's had, and you think of Ancelotti's stats in the game. So I think in main judging there's a slightly different culture in Italian football that's been there since the big money came in the early 60s. That's the first thing to say. The second thing is, I'd say use the word ruthless about them there, but Moshiri's done something similar in terms of changing the manager regularly at Everton, albeit less frequently. But we ever described Moshiri as being ruthless or just stupid or daft? Do you know what I mean? I don't think we've ever really said that.
I think when Koeman went, I think you could say, I don't know.
You know, it was fairly early in the season, wasn't it?
Yes, it was October, wasn't it?
But I don't think anyone was calling him ruthless, but in retrospect, you could say that was ruthless.
Yeah, but since then, has he been? Would you say he's been ruthless? More than often than not, it's been criticism for the type what we're saying about appointing the wrong manager, not knowing what he's doing. You know, but we're saying for the Freakins, they're being ruthless. Well, actually, are they? Or they? I mean, it's interesting.
Don't take ruthless as what I say. Ruthless as being either a positive or a negative. I just think it's ruthless, off the bat. Do you know what I mean?
No, I'm judging about ruthless of like we've got these high standards, you haven't achieved them, and shown you can't very early on, so we're going to get rid of you. I don't. That's where I'm coming from. So I think it's Everton and Roma are completely different, but we just have to be careful here. Actually, it may just be bad footballing decisions. It was interesting, wasn't it? I think the time was saying the time his hard work over the past few weeks.
Yeah.
It's just like, not past few years,
No.
or like over the past few weeks, and so Italian and English football is different. I wouldn't say necessarily ruthless. I think there's maybe a little bit more going on there. I also say, before we get to Everton, is there was an interesting thing from Gabriel Marcotti, who knows far more about this than ourselves, obviously, great year and is hugely knowledgeable about Italian football. He said that they've been using consultants as part of the decision at Roma, which is slightly worrying. If
you pick your Everton manager that way,
and also if you start using consultants at Everton, well, that's not really within our ethos now, how we should be operating, and that was interesting. But I think Everton, I'm not sure whether be the same thing at Everton, really. I think we're in a slightly different position to Roma. So if you were Dyche, I don't think you'd be looking at what's happened at Roma the weekend, thinking my chances of getting sacked at Everton have now increased when the Freakin group comes in compared to what they were before the weekend. So I don't think it'd be apples and pears, I think, comparing Roma and Everton for many different reasons. But it does give an insight, doesn't it, in the way they operate. It's that use of consultants, that's not really something that doesn't ring true with me. I think I'd be worried if they get into that. Yeah. That aspect at Goodison.
I say poor old Juric, when he said when he last the season, he didn't mean autumn.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's just interesting to see how they operate. But I don't think that necessarily be the way they operate in English football.
I don't particularly care how they operate as such. If they want to just hire a manager who has complete control over the football club from top to bottom, then that's fine. If they want to hire a director of football who oversees everything from top to bottom, including hiring the manager, then that's fine with me. But you've got to let that person do the job. For me, you're looking at bringing in a director of football right now.
You're talking at Everton?
Yeah, at Everton now, sorry. Yeah. And, building the foundation, laying the foundation and building the infrastructure up at the club.
So get rid of Thelwell, he's saying?
Well, Thelwell's leaving anyway, or his contract is up at the end of the season.
And there's been rumours that he wanted to leave in the past few years at a certain point.
So there's obviously that to contend with. There's obviously Dyche to contend with. There's obviously results to contend with. I think I've got on record over the past couple of weeks, bearing in mind that my mind could change if results do not pick up, that the best thing for Freakin is not to make a decision during the season.
Yeah, we said that last week,
but
didn't we?
Obviously, if things carry on the way they're going, or if results don't pick up and we end up, in a relegation zone, or we end up losing this during this period, I think a decision is probably going to be made. That's just me looking at how Freakin operate and how just football is in general. But a little bit concerned for me. Just a little bit concerned how they're operating at Roma.
Well, the other thing as well is in the boardroom. I think the most senior person in the boardroom was only appointed in June, wasn't he? So I mean, there's obviously the CEO decided on the year.
Yeah, she went after the Rossi sacking.
So there's been a lot of change in a very short space of time, both football related and boardroom related at Roma, and that's also shines a light on how they operate. This is a wider thing, isn't it? It's in football. It's going off on a tangent, but it is all because somebody has made a lot of money in business, private business, and has been hugely successful, which they obviously have, and made loads of great decisions. Proper culture, as Chris has alluded to, is football is it's sport, so it's a completely different part of business, and football within sports is completely different itself, obviously because of the money and what's going on the game, and those skills, business skills that you learned in sort of normal business, as it were, don't transfer at all into football. We can think of loads of people over the years that have been hugely successful, come to a football club, lost a load of money, through bad decision making, not employing the right people, not having the knowledge of your environment. The current chairman's testimony to that for the start, isn't he? Not chairman, the current owner. Is testimony to that. And I think loads of people who've done that. Randy Lane lost a load, didn't he? a fella. So we need to have that caveat against the Freakins coming in. Yeah, they've got lots of money. They know what to do, and they know what they're doing in the businesses that they operate in. They don't know what they're doing in football because they haven't been in football long enough. And this is what we're seeing a little bit of.
Yeah.
In Roma. I think that's the thing, though. I think that was the thing with Mashiri as well. You can't really tell a billionaire what to do because they've been hugely successful in their life. They've made a huge amount of money. They've probably, been advised in certain areas of their life or certain areas of the business life. But they would look at it as, well, I'm successful. I've made all this money. I'm the one in charge. The decisions stop with me. And I think that's fair enough, like you're saying, in the business world. But I think I'm agreeing with what you're saying. I just think it's very difficult to translate that over from a business world to a sporting world.
Yeah, it's impossible, I think, in some respects. You're learning a new skill.
You employ people around you, don't you?
Leave the football decisions to the football people, I guess.
Look at the dare I say, I don't want to do this, but it's a good example is look at what FSG have done across the park.
They're a good example, aren't they, in a way?
That's the type of thing that you need to do, and that's what they need to do at Goodison. I know about what's gone on at Roma, but it's obviously something that's not happened there in some respects. So we'll see, but it's a reminder to Everton supporters and fans in general. Somebody coming in with a shed load of money, who's hugely successful, and these are the saviours of the club, may not necessarily be the case, and we just have to see how it pans out.
I think probably the better or the best option that we've got available to us right
absolutely,
now. And that's not on detriment to them either.
Yeah.
I think if this takeover doesn't happen, I think we're in a bit of a world of trouble, aren't we?
Though strange enough, somebody told me who's closer to it than me, obviously, said that actually they thought on a footballing perspective, Textor was the better option. Okay. He's got more experience and wider experience in football than the Freakins. He just hasn't got their money, and obviously he's got this, the albatross round the neck of the over the Palace shares. But I can see that. I can see why you would say that, because he's
got a multi-club model, hasn't he?
And that for a number of years, and a wider experience. Why he would have been a better option. And I sort of get that. But Freakins,
even though he seemed a bit of a loose cannon.
Yeah. but from purely from a footballing knowledge angle, he was the better option. Even though, as you say, you'd have given us plenty to talk about, wouldn't he, in the pod? And I sort of understand the Freakins have obviously got a lot to learn, haven't they?
Andy Whitty says the Freakins have turned Roma around off the pitch, which I think, having done some reading a couple of weeks ago, I don't think that was hard, because the previous owner before the Freakins wasn't the best, was he?
And you're the biggest club in the capital.
He was another American, wasn't he, Bellotti?
The biggest club in the capital city of Italy, so you're going to have more options and greater chance of doing that. But it's just interesting as now that Freakin thing has changed since they become interested in Everton. Would you probably? Isn't it really?
2 comments to finish off. Andy Whitty, you're having a laugh. Texter, the best option.
Wow. No, it didn't say that. I said Texter. Somebody told me, and I sort of get what they were saying. That Texter was in terms of pure footballing knowledge and experience, that Texter was a better option than the Freakin group, based on his work within the game.
He'd stick up for your team, you'd imagine, in various situations, good or bad.
In terms of what you want from a prospective owner, and the wealth aspect of it, and the fact that he's been, he's got the Crystal Palace shares, he's obviously not the best option.
And Raymond Malone says, wow, this downer on the Freakins and giving Dyche a free ride. I don't think we are being down. I just think we're just discussing it, aren't we?
What it is, it's just a reminder that people do not get seduced by the fact that people have been hugely successful in non-footballing business and have earned a load of money that they want to invest in your club. That means that you will therefore follow the success that they've had in their other businesses. It doesn't work like that in football, and it has never worked like that. And that's what we just have to be careful of here in terms of what our aspirations are and what we want. It could work out fantastically, but it involves them making the right footballing decisions, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I don't think we're giving Dyche a free ride, to be honest. No. I think we've been very critical.
We get stick on that sometimes. I don't think that's been the case on the podcast at all.
Yeah, from a balance point of view, we've been very critical, and I think from my personal point of view, whether I like Dyche or not, or whether you like Dyche or not, I think it's fair to say the club are not going to sack Sean Dyche until, you know, a decision is not going to be made regardless until the Freakins come in. That's my personal
and even
point
then,
of
I
view.
think it'll be the last resort.
Yeah, so I think that, you know, I'm not saying you have to accept that, but I think that is the case.
Yeah, for all the reasons we discussed last week, I think. But that doesn't necessarily mean that actually those people who say Dyche should go are wrong, or, you know, I fully understand
Yeah.
why people say that. I mean, as much for the style of football, as much as the results, I fully understand that. But whether that happens is a completely different question, isn't it? And we've discussed at length last week about the reasons why that probably won't happen in the near future.
Yeah. Okay, well, final thoughts then before we finish off. Free weekend of Everton coming up, Chris. He's still working.
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously, you said we've got Kevin Sheedy coming up. I announced that last time out on the Goodison Park, my home. So that's another treat for our viewers and our listeners. There, you know, the greatest left foot in Everton history. And I was coming up before that. We've actually got a roundup of all the Italian media are saying about the Freakins, which is a lot, to be fair. So you can make your own mind up on that one. Give that one a read this afternoon. That one's coming up, and like I say, Sheedy later in the week. So hopefully we keep those ones coming.
I look forward to Kevin Sheedy one, because obviously I remember we bought him, and you can see when you first couple of games at Goodison, he was a class player. I always say about Sheedy that if every Everton player could put a video collection of their finest moments in Everton, Kevin Sheedy's would be the best by a million miles, without a shadow of a doubt. You know, brilliant goals, fantastic assists, you know, all that type of stuff. It would just be far better than anybody else's. He was just a wonderful player. He was one Everton player I think I've seen this, and you go, how did he do that? And, you know, and he's produced so many memorable moments for me, watching him, you know, probably more than any Everton player as individual moments. You know.
It's a shame they're just so all grainy on YouTube.
So say I'm old, but at least it's in colour. It's in colour. Well, that's the main thing. But his collection of moments in Everton player will be, I think, far more entertaining than anybody else. I think he was just, on his day, he was a brilliant player.
Well, I said to Joe on Friday, I didn't want to embarrass either of us, Kevin or I, but I said to Joe, you know, he was my boyhood hero growing up, Kevin Sheedy.
Yeah. Oh no, he was a great player, Kevin, and there's just, you know, in his best. Don't talk about this in my latest book, The End, which is out, covering Everton in the mid-80s to mid-90s. You know, his best position for Everton, played centre mid for us in 86, 87, and he was superb, superb that season. But yeah, he was a wonderful player, Kevin.
Well, Chris's interview, video and audio will be out. I think we're going to aim for Friday for that one, so that'll be available on YouTube and Apple and Spotify, all of our Royal Blue audio platforms. Should we finish it there? All good?
End on a high,
finishing on Kevin Sheedy, you're not going to get better quality than that, I think.
Okay, well, that is all for today's show. Please remember to give us a like and give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Royal Blue YouTube channel on YouTube. Your support is greatly appreciated. I've been Ian Croll, joined by Chris Beesley and Gav Buckland, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.